Hey YouTube, how y'all doing today? Today I got another Thompson review for you, and this time it's gonna be the Rum Diary by Hunter S. Thompson. Now, Rum Diary was actually the first book that Hunter S. Thompson ever published. I also believe it's the first one he ever wrote. I'm pretty sure on that. And it was written, I believe, somewhere in like the mid-1950s, maybe early 60s. Hold on a second. Honestly, I want to find out when this was written. I'm gonna look this up. I'm sorry about that, but I just need to know this right now. Okay. Rum Diary. Alright. Oh. Okay, it was written in the year 1960, but actually wasn't published until the year 1998. I did not know that. But, yeah, so, okay, Rum Diary is a really good book. I really like it a lot. I honestly read it again. It's definitely worth more than one read. And, for those of you who have seen the movie is a disgrace to the book. I'm just going to say that flat out. I don't care if you guys liked the movie or if you didn't. My honest opinion is that the movie was an embarrassment in comparison to the book. And I saw the movie in theaters when it came out, and I was just like, wow, if Hunter S. Thompson really wrote the book like that, then I'm sure that it's just going to be a complete piece of crap. But I was actually very pleasantly surprised with the book. It was really good. It has kind of an interesting flavor to like the origins of Hunter S. Thompson. It doesn't explain, or I'm not explain. It doesn't discuss any drug use other than alcohol and tobacco and coffee. It's interesting, you know. I mean, Hunter S. Thompson is such a notorious drug user that to think that, you know, this whole book it's all booze. You know, I mean, Rum Diary, perfect name for this book. I'll tell you, they're just he's in Cuba and he's just getting drunk. I mean, no, not Cuba. Excuse me, Puerto Rico. Excuse me. He's in Puerto Rico and he is just getting drunk as hell. And it's just, oh, it's crazy. It's talking about how, you know, he signs up with this local newspaper. Everybody that works for the newspaper, they're all drunks. You know, he's a drunk too, essentially, at this point in his life. Probably pretty much was for the entire thing. And, you know, it's just a young Hunter, like, it shows a photo on this edition on the cover of him at the age when he was writing this. You know, I don't know if he was actually writing the book in that photo. You can see he's writing something. It might have been an article for the newspaper he was working on at that time. But in the book, you know, he works for this newspaper, and they're kind of like collapsing, and the story is basically about how, you know, they're trying to keep the paper going, but, you know, it's basically looking to be a failure. Now, I won't tell you what happens, really, because I don't like giving things away in these reviews, but, you know, a lot of different shit happens, and there's a bunch of different characters. In the book, his name is Paul Kemp. You know, he uses a different name, like, kind of like how in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas it was Raoul Duke, you know. I mean, in this book it's Paul Kemp, and he has a few friends. He lives with one of the guys who also works at the paper, this other drunk. And, you know, they go on a few adventures, but it's just, it has a different flavor to it than, let's say, something that I'm sure a lot of you guys most likely be acquainted with, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like, it doesn't have that whole, like, drug binge, like, completely insane, like, maniac Hunter S. Thompson aspect to it. It's kind of more like a, like, I don't know exactly what term to put to it, but more of like a normal kind of thing to it. I mean, it's still Hunter. I mean, there's plenty of parts of it where you kind of like start to see like, oh, like it shows you how he develops his writing style. It's very interesting in that aspect, and I appreciated it a lot in that way. I rate the book very highly. I mean, it kind of talks about how he gets into like an affair essentially with one of the people who works with him, like I think it's his wife or his girlfriend. I think it's a girlfriend actually, and he gets like into an affair with her, and then the guy gets mad at him, and all this different shit happens. There's kind of like several plots like running together. It's an interesting book. It's got a lot of really good subject matter to it. It takes place in Puerto Rico, so it's kind of an interesting thing to see. Hunter out of his element, because Hunter's really, really one of those famous kind of American writers. So that also has definitely adds an interesting flavor to it as well. To think that it's Puerto Rican, and it really shows you that even in a gonzo journalism state of his life, because at this point, gonzo journalism, that did not exist yet, he hadn't developed that concept yet, it's the ghost of it, or I guess the ghost would be afterward, actually, but you know what I mean, it's like the pre-ethers of, no pun intended, of, what gonzo journalism would become, and as far as, it says on the book itself that it's a novel, as far as, like, how much of this book, um, is actually real, like, to a T, I couldn't really tell you, I don't really know, to be honest with you, but I'm sure that it has kind of a similar type deal with, the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where it kind of, like, Hunter almost has this kind of writing where it's just like, is it fake? Is it real? Like, I'll let you decide, you know what I mean? So I guess, we'll never really know exactly how much of this is real or not. Me, personally, I like to believe that, a lot of the things that he writes are basically real, I mean, I believe the majority of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas personally, whether you think that's dumb or not, I don't really care. I think that Hunter S. Thompson was definitely, and as well as Astruzeta Acosta, were definitely crazy enough to really go through with the majority of the things that they wrote in that book, and I would have to say the same for Rum Diary. I think that a lot of this is probably real. If anyone has any information on, what's real and what's not in this, or even in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I would love to know. Leave me a message or something, or whatever. But I don't think anyone really knows when it really comes down to it. So even if you have a belief about that, I may not necessarily credit it as reality. So, I would rate this book probably, I want to say I would probably give it like a solid 7.5, maybe an 8, which is pretty high because, I would never really honestly rate a book a 10, and only like my very, very favorite books I would rate as a 9, so this was definitely, kind of up there, I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I want to read it again at some point soon, so if you're into Hunter, are kind of, looking to see a little bit more of the background about Hunter and his life, I would highly recommend it. It's a very good book. Well, that's about it for this review, so I guess I'll catch y'all later. See you later, YouTube.